Hello everybody, this is Joseph P. Farrell with News and Views from the Nefarium on Thursday, January 17th, 2013. I'm actually recording this a day early. I'm recording it late Wednesday night on January the 16th. And the reason why, as I'm sure you can guess, is the recent news that Germany wants its gold. Okay. And I've had to refrain. When the story first came out, I'll tell you what happened. And this may be a news and views that goes to 2 parts, maybe even 3. I don't know. It depends on how long I talk. But I want to tell you the story as to why it's taken me a while to comment. The story first broke in Germany in an article in German in the Handelsblatt. And I have a friend in Germany that sent me this article. And I read it and I thought, holy cow. So I waited to see if the article would break in English news sources, and of course it did rather quickly. And then I had to go out of town on a business trip, so that's why you're hearing this news and views rather late. I just got back, and like I say, this one may go for quite a while, because so many of you sent me emails of articles, your own thoughts. I mean, I printed off a pile, okay, and read them all. And I gotta hand it to many of you. You're seeing exactly the same thing I'm seeing. I'm seeing things in a rather interesting way. I even listened for once this morning. I thought I'd listen to a little television and a little talk radio. And there is a rather well-known, somewhat on the fringe radio commentator that I actually listened to that said very much the same thing that many of you are saying and that I happen to think. So let's get started with what I think may be going on here. And I'm going to start with 5 points. The 5 points that I want to make in this talk. The first point is German sovereignty. The second point is lack of trust. The third point is what are the amounts of gold, or gold amounts. The fourth one is rehypothecation. And the fifth one is geopolitical realignment. Okay? Now, you know, if it were any other country in Europe, we probably wouldn't be feeling queasy right now. But Germany is not just any other country in Europe. It's right in the heart of Europe. Its economy has always been powerful in terms of the European scene. It still is. And we know the history. Okay, and dear German friends, don't get me wrong. I'm not thinking that Germany's going to cut loose or anything like that. I don't think that. Here's where I want to begin. I'm linking these articles in the website and on YouTube. And I want to begin with an odd article that may seem unrelated. That's a little article that appeared on RT called Germany's Sovereignty Restricted by U.S. and Allies, Insider's Book Claims. Now this is interesting because a book has come out in Germany by the general that used to be the head of West German intelligence, alright, General Kamosa. And I want to read what RT is saying about this book and what General Kamosa says in this book. Listen carefully. Quote, in Gerd Helmut Kamosa's book, The German Card, he claims Germany has, until now, been controlled by the United States and its allies, and was even viewed as a possible target. Quote, at a NATO meeting, I realized that a possible plan was for the alliance to hit the largest dam in West Germany with a nuclear bomb If strikes had taken place, a great number of civilians would have died, unquote. The retired general details a secret pact he alleges was signed in 1949 between Germany and the United States, and which will be in force for another 90 years. Camosa says the secret agreement means that all political parties in Germany are supervised by a special Washington-based body, that the country's army takes part in NATO missions at first demand, and that all German gold reserves are stored in New York, unquote. Now, this article is appearing only in RT, in its English language news service, and I contend, my friends, that that is highly significant, because RT is telling us that what Germany's move really is, in part, by demanding a repatriation of its gold from France, from the UK, and from the United States. These are, of course, the three principal Western Allied powers of World War II. And it's each of these powers, if you do a little digging, that you'll discover some claim that impose these types of conditions on West Germany as a condition for a grant of limited sovereignty to that country after World War II. In other words, what RT is telling you is that Germany, by demanding its gold back, number one, is reasserting sovereignty. And I'm going to suggest now, as my thesis in these talks about the German gold situation, I'm going to suggest that what this portends is precisely a geopolitical realignment. Germany would not be doing this if it had not already had very private and secret discussions about the long-term prospects of the world economy and Germany's place within it with Russia and China. And I want you to remember that Chancellor Merkel took virtually the entire German federal cabinet with her to Beijing in very recent times for precisely high, secret, confidential talks. And I suspect that these talks had a lot to do with the currency situation. Germany and China are two countries that like to keep their currencies weak in order to drive their exports. With the quantitative easing that's happening with the dollar, of course, they cannot keep up. Alright, so this is the first thing I think we need to look at. This is the first signal for something that we can watch for, if that's true. Because if that's true, you're going to see the following things begin to happen. Germany will gradually, although it will not appear to do so de jure, de facto, it is going to gradually move out of NATO or expand its own role and influence within NATO to the expense of the United States and Great Britain. Alright, that's the first thing to watch for. The second thing to watch for is even more critical. I think you're going to see now, as they are attempting to isolate the US dollar in the world currency stage, I think you're going to see a move to abandon the Society for Worldwide Interbank Financial Transfer, otherwise known as SWIFT, that's based in Brussels, Belgium, which is the principal international clearinghouse between the United States and Europe, and for that matter some other international transactions. You're going to see competitors emerge because SWIFT, if you have followed the argument in Covert Wars and Breakaway Civilizations, it is very likely that American intelligence has deeply and for a long time penetrated all financial transactions being handled by SWIFT. So you're going to see a competitor emerge simply because what is being signaled now, as I said in my talking points, the other thing being signaled by the Germans and by the German central bank, the Bundesbank, as it's calling for repatriation of its gold, is that trust between central banks, and particularly between the Bundesbank and the Federal Reserve, has collapsed. That is huge, my friends. That is huge, because it means a signal has been fired across the bow of the financial oligarchy of New York and London by the German central bank. And this would not be happening again if there were not some significant players behind the Bundesbank. This is not to say that Germany isn't a significant player in the world economic scene, but it wouldn't be doing this alone. I'm almost totally convinced of that. There have to be other players involved. Now, let me look and direct your attention to some other things. For the Bundesbank to be doing this, we have to ask ourselves the question, why? Now, the Bundesbank, if you'll recall, had as little as 3 months ago reassured all of the rest of the central banking world that its trust and confidence in the New York Federal Reserve, in the American Federal Reserve System, was high, and it was trying to assuage German fears that they didn't need a gold audit, everything was fine. This is a total reversal of policy in a very short time. All right? Now, what it means is that there is indeed a lack of trust. The question is why? We are now hearing articles, and I'm linking some of them for you, that even though the Federal Reserve claims it has 6,720 tons of gold on hand, and the Bundesbank only wants to repatriate some 300 tons of this, apparently. The first stories out was they wanted it all. They wanted their whole 3,000 tons back in Germany. All right. But now the stories are circulating that it's only 300 tons, and yet we are seeing articles now that the Federal Reserve is claiming that it will take them 7 years to repatriate 300 tons of gold, which is approximately 4 to 5% of the 6,000 tons of gold that they claim they have. Now, I submit to you this possibility, that when the Bundesbank fired this shot that they wanted to repatriate their gold, they knew that this would be the response of the Federal Reserve. In other words, the message wasn't really, we want to repatriate our gold, but the message was, we want to show the rest of the world that this institution no longer can be trusted. This is huge, my friends. This is as close to firing actual shells, bullets, and bombs at the West as you can come without doing so. This is huge, because what they're signaling to the rest of the world is there's something wrong with this institution. Why is it going to take the Federal Reserve 7 years to repatriate a mere fraction of the gold they claim to have? And my suggestion to you is this is intimately connected to all those bearer bond scandals and to the thesis I've been advocating in Covert Wars and on the website. And that is that the amount of gold is a lot more than official figures will admit. But, number two, that gold has been rehypothecated so many times that there is no clear chain of ownership to it. And that means that there is a system of fraud in place at the heart of the system of Western finance. And I have argued that it's actually, what we're seeing now coming to light is a huge hidden system of finance, intimately tied to the whole NATO intelligence structure, to the whole U.S. military intelligence complex, all of that. This is what is being exposed. This is what is being fingered. And I submit to you that the Bundesbank, as I wrote in Covert Wars, this is something that the German central bank has known for a very, very long time. All right? Now, let me get to the final point I want to make here. And I'm glad I'm able to make all of these points in one sitting. I hope this recording will keep going for me. I indicated that what this might mean is a geopolitical realignment. And I'm going to stick with that and suggest that if this move is genuine on the part of the Bundesbank, then you're going to see other central banks make similar moves now. So to speak, a open conflict has been declared between an emerging bloc, which I believe now will include Germany, and that the Germans are going to move more and more toward a rapprochement with Russia and China, even if it means directly challenging any hidden protocols in any treaty that was signed between them and the Western Allies after World War II. This is how deep and how significant this announcement is. So we can expect not only to look for the two things I mentioned before, including the rise, that second all-important point, the rise of clearing competitors to SWIFT in Brussels. All right? I think this is going to be the next step to watch for, quite frankly. But also, I think the other thing we need to look for very closely now is you're going to see an attempt, I believe, and this will put me in complete contradiction to what other people are saying. I believe you're going to see an attempt to diffuse the situation emerging between China and Japan over the dispute between those Pacific islands. I think you're going to see Russia, China, Germany, Brazil, the so-called BRICS nations. I think you're going to see a concerted effort on their part to diffuse those tensions. So in other words, they are going to be making big diplomatic plays to move Japan out from underneath the thumb of that Anglo-American Western power. All right? So in other words, watch for geopolitical realignment. You're going to see more and more announcements of little economic deals between Germany and Russia, Germany and China, and so on and so forth. You're also going to see announcements of similar diplomatic high-level meetings between the United States and Germany. The fight is on for Germany. All right? I don't think this is a fight, ultimately, that the Western financiers are going to win, because the cat has been let out of the bag. If the Bundesbank ultimately caves, some other central bank somewhere is going to take up the call. And already, my friends, we're hearing Ireland is now doing a similar call for audit and repatriation. Anyway, that's it. It's a long news and views, my friends, but keep it posted, because this one's going to get very interesting. I'll see you all on the flip side. God bless everybody.